Not your average tabletop. Woohoo!
Welcome to Not Your Average Tabletop. I'm Zach.
And I'm Pepper.
And today we're going to be giving our first impressions of Anno 1800, which is a game that's been on our shelf of opportunity for a little bit of time. I think I got it right around the same time I got Nerds Day games last year. And we had those delivered this year before. We had the ones for this year, the following year, delivered before we got this one to the table.
Mm-hmm.
So we finally did get it to the table. It's one that I've been excited to get to the table. And I think after getting it to the table, how many times can I say that? Got to put a counter on here.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I think it was more approachable than I had initially thought.
Yeah.
I think it was one of them that I was excited about a little bit more than kind of everyone else, except maybe Zachary. I think he was probably excited about it, just because
You didn't even invite him to play.
It's a Martin Wallace game, who's a designer of the Brass games, but we specifically have Brass Birmingham, and that one doesn't get to the table a ton, so just was kind of feeling a little maybe scary, unapproachable in that way, I think, for maybe you and Michaela.
Which, I will say, I watched, I think a Dice Tower did a playthrough of this once, and after watching the playthrough, I gave you the approval to get this sometime, because I thought, which I think I didn't obviously remember it. Years went by, and I had forgotten kind of how it went, but I did remember that there must have been something in there that was maybe approachable or cool in some way, so haven't been completely against this one. And it was actually a while still until you even bought it.
Got it.
Then, because I know I was like, how have you not gotten that one? How have you not gotten Anno 1800 yet? And then you got it, and then another long period of time, how have you not played Anno 1800 yet? So,
yeah.
Finally did play it, and yeah, I agree that it's not that intimidating.
No, it isn't. In the game, you're really kind of building, well, the end game is really triggered by, there's this hand of cards that you get, and you're, throughout the game, getting rid of those cards. They're pretty much completing contracts, essentially, for those cards, and throughout the game, there's ways to gain more cards. So the end game is triggered when someone gets rid of all their cards, and it is not... At first, it seems like, oh, this will be kind of an easy thing to do, and then all of a sudden you have a ton of cards in your hand, and it's like, okay, this is a lot more cards than I thought I would have, and I feel like we didn't even, maybe we did about the right amount, I don't know. Obviously, playing it one time, I'm not sure what the expert strategies of this game are, but it didn't feel like any of us went out of our way to gain a ton of extra cards or anything.
I was thinking, I'm like,
we were trying
how did we get so many extra cards? Because, you kind of have production for different resources, and to activate them you use colored cubes based on which color those spots require, and the colored cubes, you have one card for each one, so if you gain an additional cube, you would then have to gain another card that you're going to have to fulfill to trigger the end of the game, which doesn't mean you're going to win the game. That's just what triggers the game, so you can just score a bunch of cards but not complete them all and still win the game. But yeah, it's just a really unique thing where it's like, oh, if I get more workers, I'm going to be able to do more actions, and I'm going to be able to complete these cards. But wait, I'm getting more cards if I'm getting more workers. And you go to, what is the one? Don't you get 3 cards when you go to get another, new land or whatever? Is that 3 cards that you have to fulfill, or were those animal cards? I forget. I think you had to
there was 3
fill those as well.
Yeah, so there was 3 that you had to fulfill, and then I think another piece gave you the animal cards. I think it was kind of more of a reward, or else you could use your kind of ship cannon tokens to get more of those.
Yeah, and I think that's the part that did get us most of our extra cards, because you kind of have to go there, because some resources are only from there, and you cannot copy those ones from opponents, which usually you can copy other players' tokens, but those ones you cannot. So you kind of have to go there, and you're going to be gaining 3, possibly another 3 cards that you have to fulfill. And I thought that the kind of, I guess, production tech tree I thought that was pretty satisfying, and
I agree.
especially right away when you're like, oh, this is awesome, I can build this, which I mean, that's just how it is, but it really feels like you're doing something cool,
Right.
like, oh, I have access to this, and no one else does.
They gotta pay me, or they
yeah.
gotta use my stuff, and I get gold if they use
Yeah.
it. Yeah, that feels really cool. But then all of a sudden,
And then you hit a wall, and the
yes.
next thing you want to build requires something that you're not even close to getting. Like,
right,
I think some of the special ones require you to exhaust
the
like a worker.
mustache man.
Yeah, kind of the fifth, the most valuable worker, which you have to pay a bunch to either get or upgrade
Purple
a
one,
previous
which is already
worker. Which
hard to get too.
Yeah, and you're not going to get too many of them, and you don't really want to get rid of them in that way.
Right.
But yeah, once you realize what it's going to take to get that, it's like, oh, I thought I was chugging along here. Not so much. This is going to have to build up for a few turns to be able to even do this.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Because yeah, it's like, oh yeah, this is gonna be easy. But yeah, then it gets to just a few of those that are a lot more difficult to do than others. But yeah, at first I thought I don't know about utilizing other people's stuff. It's gonna be hard to remember. It's gonna be, but I felt like that was really smooth too, which really helped the game. Because I thought, I know in a lot of games it's sometimes not as fun to have to look at what other opponents what do you got, what do you got. But you can kind of just ask who has something. It's not like it's a secret. Like it's not like you're trying to hide your plans. Like I gotta secretly try to do this or something.
Yeah.
I really like how smooth it is to be able to just use kind of your ship tokens to trade with them.
Yeah.
And then you're just giving them a gold, which
they get that from the
huge
supply
thing.
and not from you directly, which
Right.
is really nice as well, because you are already spending those trade tokens.
Right. But yeah, those gold, and the gold doesn't really feel like you're giving them something that's like, I really, really want to avoid taking a bunch. I think
if they get a bunch of gold, like it can really be important,
can be helpful
but
for 'em for sure, but
just one more doesn't feel like, oh, I'm just really helping them a lot. It doesn't feel like that.
No.
It's just like, okay, take that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I like that definitely opens it up so you don't have to feel like you have to build everything.
Yeah.
That really is a nice thing as well. I will say the one thing that I didn't utilize probably as much as I maybe could have, just because I wasn't really looking at my board and I wasn't really thinking about it. I just kept adding like new pieces because you fill up your board pretty quickly if you're filling in just new tiles, but you can choose to overplay something, but then you just won't have that action available to you anymore. You obviously could still use an opponent's. But
Yeah, I thought that ended up pretty much doing that near the end of the game for the more valuable ones that were scoring according to certain cards. And I don't feel like there were some actions that we didn't use much, and I'm sure that would change with the different objectives and what you want to go for, possibly. But still, I think that's then going to leave other ones out.
Right.
So I do, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think it just frees up space for you, which I enjoy.
Right. And I think, that could be just part of the design, that some are a little less useful than others, just to kind of give you that ability to stack them and not feel like you're losing a big part of a potential engine. So that could be part of the design. I'm not sure if there's any Anno 1800 experts out there, and are still listening at this point. Let us know in the comments below if that's like, oh yeah, obviously this one you want to replace like immediately because it's useless or something. One play, I'm not gonna start making claims that things are useless, but I agree that there was a couple, at least one for sure that I can think of that I never used, and then possibly another one or two that I either didn't use or used like one time.
I think there were two I didn't use and one I used once, like first turn. But I really enjoyed my play of this. It was approachable and satisfying, and even though it did kind of feel like you hit a little bit of a wall there, once you did get going again and started unlocking those things, that felt really satisfying as well. Just filling out those cards and trying to figure out which order you want to do them based on the benefits that they're going to give you. I find that's a really cool puzzle. The end game trigger, which you trigger the end game and then it kind of finishes the round. I feel like this is a game that, it really does depend kind of when it ends and how many cards you have and how close you are. It could be one where you feel like, yes, I just got all my cards done. If you're that person, that's going to feel really satisfying. For others, if they could complete like a card a turn, then that's going to feel like I just left so much out there because each card can get you so much. I feel so there can be a little sour taste possibly at that, but I don't think that hurts the experience all that much. Personally, and just a little note that some of the icons can be similar, and I know we had built a couple things. Mac and I had built, which is just what we do with Martin Wallace games. Apparently, we just get rules wrong.
I misinterpreted the rules.
Yes. And so we had built some things that we didn't quite have access to.
Yes, there are a couple symbols that are kind of similar, and I did think as well. So I guess one of them was the for the top hat guy. I think initially Mac thought that was the blue symbol.
Blue symbol. Yeah.
And I at first when I looked at it, that's what I thought it was too. But then I was like looking at it, I'm like, why is that not the same icon though? That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So then I had to look and I'm like, oh, it's the last upgraded guy, because I just assumed and it didn't make sense either because it was like after one that required one that was more valuable than the blue. So I'm like, that doesn't seem like it makes sense, but maybe there's a reason for it.
Because you don't like start out with the mustache man, fancy man, so it's not in your mind as like even an option. But yeah.
And I think there's like a sheets of metal
and then glass or something. I made windows with like sheets of metal instead of glass, which thematically, this is what happens when you aren't into the theme, when resources are just red and blue for you, then you kind of confuse these symbols, even though it makes no thematic sense as to how you're able to build that. So that was probably on me, definitely. But still, I enjoyed this one quite a bit. I think I'd give it, let's go an 8.5.
Ooh. That's actually what I'm coming in with as well.
Wow.
8.5, 8.75.
Actually tying on a number.
We are.
It's been ages.
Yes, it has been a little bit since we've tied on a number, but yeah, this is one that I enjoyed quite a bit, and I'm hoping to get back to the table sooner than later. I'm interested to see how it'll play with higher player counts. I'm not 100% sure on that, but obviously then you're going to have more people having more of the tiles, so I don't know if that'll make it quicker in that way, but then I'm not 100% sure. Yeah. Let's see. It does just say 120 minutes on the box, so maybe it is the same no matter what the player count is. So I'm excited to try this one out some more, and I'm hoping the score will go up, but we'll see after more plays, because there is, I don't know, there is a part of me that thinks after a handful of plays, is it still gonna feel interesting? Is there like some hook there that's gonna feel different still after 5 plays or so?
That's
or is
true.
It gonna start to feel the same? I'm not sure. And it's not like we play. I mean, we got a huge collection, so I mean, when I say this, it's not really a problem.
That's true.
I guess it's gonna be a minimum of months in between when we play this, so it'll always feel fresh. But if it were one that I'm like, oh, I want to try to play this a bunch of times in the same month, is it going to start to feel, I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
It's probably still going to feel enjoyable with the tech tree that you go after.
I'm not bothered by games that feel samey from play to play. I can still enjoy a game. Some probably need that more than others. And this one, it might be one of those, since it is a heavier strategic game. If it doesn't have that depth or that variability, it might suffer a little bit, but I think I'd still enjoy the core of it.
I think so too. And I think there's a little bit of difference, I guess, with this being more of an efficiency puzzle. You're always trying to be more efficient than the last time you played, possibly. And just, I don't think that I'm a player that, there's probably players out there that can play this 1 time or 2 times and be like, well, I can see what you have to do based on, they're looking at the, you got to get this, you got to get this, you got to do this. I am not that type of player. I would not figure that out, so I won't have that problem. So I'll always be improving, hopefully. But yeah, otherwise we've got an unboxing video on this one with all the good components in there. They're so-so, I would say.
I think it's good.
It's
It's got
good.
good
It's
colors.
good.
Good
It's got
colors.
good, you
Good
know.
artwork. Yeah.
It's fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise we hope to see you on that video, and as always, don't forget to
Keep on nibbling.
on our content.